This foreign film, firmly entrenched in the top 20 highest rated films on IMDb, is the true story of two boys growing up in the violent City of God neighborhood outside of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. One becomes a photographer, the other boy becomes a murderous drug dealer. City of God, which is entirely in English subtitles, feels a lot like a Portuguese version of Scorsese's Goodfellas, except with the delusional and hopeless children rather than Ray Liotta and Robert De Niro. Perhaps it was because of the subtitles, or because of all the little Brazilian kids looked the same to me, or perhaps it was because of all the non-linear and sporadic narrative, but I found myself struggling to follow the complicated plot and character paths for most of the first half of this film. When things finally settled in, and after most of the supporting cast had been killed off, I was actually pleasantly surprised by City of God, which finally started to come into its own, rather than just being a Godfather-esque cut scenes of people being murdered type of a movie. The immensely large cast of local amateurs did a terrific job here, but none of them really stood out, and I found it difficult to really connect to any of the main characters. I will say this though, the cinematography and editing in this film were absolutely outstanding, keeping things moving at a blistering pace all while maintaining a very stylized, almost music video look to some of the shots. The dirty slums of Brazil are portrayed with gritty and striking realism that really immerses you in the sights and sounds of this hellish neighborhood. And although this film and all of its characters are closely based on a true story, I couldn't help but feel like it was a poor man's version of a much better gangster film that had come before. Although beautifully shot, written, and acted, I quite honestly wasn't that impressed with City of God. I'd go so far as to say I was even bored at times. Perhaps it was because I set myself up for some amazing film, or because the subtitles kept me distant from sympathizing with any of the characters, but I really didn't think that this movie was anything special. That being said, however, I did really enjoy the film, especially the last hour, and I can certainly appreciate for what it was trying to accomplish, so it wins back some points for me there. Anyway, that's what I thought of City of God. Now let's see what you had to say in the YouTube comments. Sandyman002 wrote, "A masterpiece of cinema, a cast of unknowns, but they can act better than most big Hollywood A-listers. A lot of realistic gritty drama and violence, probably the best foreign film of the noughties. 10 out of 10. Bostonorama wrote, "City of God was a shockingly realistic movie. It really opened my eyes to the slum violence in Brazil. The plot was captivating and it always kept me on my toes. I was reluctant to watch it at first, but I was impressed with what I found after a friend convinced me to watch it. 8 out of 10. Alright, let's fire up the Rate-O-Matic and see how City of God fared. I scored it a 6, you guys scored it a 7. My opinions on this film were certainly mixed. There were aspects of this movie I really enjoyed and thought were quite deserving of a higher rating, while at other times I found myself disconnected and uninterested with the plot. I end up giving it a good ranking. Your views were just as mixed as mine, and many of you either flat out hated this movie or you absolutely loved it, praising the shocking, really realistic portrayal of the slum life in Brazil, scoring it a much higher 10. It averaged out to a cool